I've recently returned from the Sahara Desert as a reconnaissance trip for a planned expedition in September, in which a team of Ford Focuses will attempt to drive the original Dakar rally route. Two Ford Focuses, a 1.6 and a 1.8 Mark II, headed off for just over 2 weeks to check out the route, because Morocco's had a pretty severe winter, abnormally so, and that's taken out a lot of tracks. A lot of dunes have moved and stuff like that. So we checked that out, as well as scoping out new routes and the such for next year's adventure. So the story was all about the Ford Focuses, but behind the scenes with all of our trips since 2018 has been one of two of these Nissan Patrols, the absolute workhorse of the project. So what I thought I'd do is just tell you a bit more about it, give a walk around, show how it's kitted out, and the history behind this incredible vehicle and its sister vehicle that will be joining us on future projects. So yeah, follow me and I'll give you a quick tour. Car spotters among you will see that it's a Nissan Patrol Y61. I think it's also called the GR. Brought into the UK and Europe in about 1998 with a 2.8 litre engine. That was a straight 6 turbo, and then I believe it was around about 2002, 2003 that was changed to a 3 litre 4-cylinder engine, common rail, so a lot more electronic. I know it had a fly-by-wire throttle, which was a little bit temperamental, but this one though is a 4.2 normally aspirated, so never brought into Europe, but primarily used by the aid agencies. So it was the sort of Nissan equivalent of the Toyota 105 series. So many of you will have heard of the 100 series Land Cruiser that superseded the 80, and that's now gone on to become the 200 and 300. But the 105 series was also what the aid agencies used, and that was kind of one of their main workhorses, along with the 70 series. So it was a 100 series Land Cruiser with a solid front axle. The Patrols have always remained with a solid front axle, but this was the 4.2, normally aspirated, so incredibly basic. So as you can see there, it has a Shell logo on the bonnet, Shell Helix written on the side there, and this big logo on the side, driven to extremes. So this was one of two vehicles, and we still have both of them, that was purchased for an extreme driving series on Discovery Channel. So an agency called JWT, probably one of the biggest ad agencies in the world, approached us because they had this idea of Hollywood actors and sort of motor racing champions driving. Originally it was going to be the coldest, the hottest and the highest roads on the planet. So they came to us and said it had to be in Russia, China and India. And for that 6-word brief, hottest, coldest, highest, Russia, China, India, I was tasked to deliver a 3-part TV series on Discovery Channel. In the end, we couldn't do the highest, although I did the reconnaissance trip for it, because we couldn't get across Tibet from China into India, or into Nepal, then up into India. So we had to drive down to Laos, Thailand and Malaysia to drive the toughest road. So let me just have a look inside while I'm chatting further. And as you'll see, it's a left-hand drive, and I'll tell you more about that in a minute. The coldest one, I planned, did the reconnaissance for it. We drove the coldest road on Earth. So that was from the coldest city, a place called Yakutsk in Far Eastern Siberia, to Omyakon, the coldest inhabited place, where record temperatures there have been minus 71.2 degrees centigrade. We had it quite warm. We only had minus 60. I think the warmest day we had was about minus 42, something like that. Now, bearing in mind, the British military and NATO forces, they stopped training in the Arctic at minus 30 because the risk of a cold weather injury is so severe, it's just not worth continuing. So we were way beyond that. Yes, we were in vehicles. Yes, we had heaters, but we still had to operate outside of that a lot. So minus 60 is way off the Richter scale when it comes to the risk of a cold weather injury. So for that one, we had the Hollywood actor Tom Hardy, who you may know from being the baddie in the Batman film. He played Mad Max. He was in Black Hawk Down. He's done loads of stuff. And joining him was the ex-Ferrari F1 racer, Mika Salo. It's going to be very tough. You know, we're looking at temperatures possibly down to minus 60. Now, most people think the North Pole is probably the coldest place, but temperatures there are somewhere between minus 30 and minus 40 at the most, purely because you're always surrounded by relatively warm water.
There are strict rules to survival, you know, which are really basic. Your fingers will start to freeze and fall off, you know, if you leave them out of your gloves for long. That's not a joke.
It's going to be hard. It's getting colder, we're going higher, and more wind, more open spaces, and no help.
See that? It's a little bit chilly. Hopefully we'll make it to the night.
Yeah.
Good night. Spasiba.
At the time, Tom didn't actually have a driving license and couldn't drive. So if you've seen the film, and I've put the links in the bottom of this video, Mika did all of the driving, and it was a 1,200-mile round trip over about, I think it was 5 days. Plus we had a couple of days in Yakutsk at the beginning and 1 day at the end. So that was the coldest road in Far Eastern Siberia. Then we went to the desert of Western China, the Taklamakan Desert, also referred to as the Desert of Death. The road that we drove in Siberia, I might as well add, is referred to as the Road of Bones. It was where Stalin's Gulag prisoners were sent to dig for uranium, for gold, whatever they could find, and a road had to link up all of the mines. And because in the Arctic, if you raise a road above the surrounding landscape, the wind will naturally blow it clear of snow. So of course the whole of the Road of Bones is raised up by 6-12 feet compared to the surrounding landscape. So if anyone died in the process of building it, they were just interned into the road, and the road went over the top of them. It is estimated for the 2,000 kilometer journey, there are about 2 million people buried in that road. It's pretty damn severe, and you can see why so many people died, let alone, malnutrition, beatings from the guards and what have you. So horrible history with the road, but a fascinating part, and the people who live there now are absolutely wonderful. Anyway, so we went to the Taklamakan Desert in Western China with Henry Cavill, who plays Superman, and Neil Hodgson, former world Superbike champion. This desert, this Taklamakan Desert, is one of the harshest and most inhospitable deserts on the planet.
I do action films. That's pretend. This is the real deal, the real stuff. It's dangerous out here. The car rolls, it's genuine, and people's lives are in danger.
This is the biggest moving sand desert on the planet. There's no roads where we're going. It's going to be extremely hard to keep track of the vehicles, keep track of the people, make sure people are drinking enough.
But the real reality is, the nearest helicopter is over 1,000 kilometers away. It will not come and get us. There are no military helicopters. There are no military vehicles. There are no rescue teams. There's no emergency government service. There is squat.
And we're on. 9 o'clock in the morning. It's 30 degrees. We've got 7 hours driving, I think, today. It's going to be a long day.
From there, we went to the Malaysian Jungle. Like I say, we tried to go across Tibet, but they were announcing a new premier at the end of 2012. And so in order not to get any bad press coming out of Tibet, the Chinese completely closed the whole region. Nobody in, nobody out. So in order for us to get to the highest road in the Indian Himalayas, a place called Kardang La, it's not the highest, but the Indians like to say it is, we would have to have driven across Tibet from far western China, across Tibet, over the Himalayas to Nepal, then swing a right into India and up. But we couldn't get across Tibet, so we couldn't get to Nepal. Hence, we headed southeast and went to Laos, Thailand and Malaysia, and drove one of the toughest roads through the jungle with Adrien Brody, who at the time was the youngest Oscar winner for the film The Pianist, but he has now won a second Oscar. Excuse me, Adrien, I can't remember what film you won it for, but yes, he now has 2 Oscars to his name. And Mika Salo enjoyed Siberia so much, he came down and did that one with us.
This is definitely one of the most dangerous expeditions I've ever been on. The environment is one of the most inhospitable known to man and machine. The conditions we're in, height of the monsoon, very, very heavy rain, torrential rain, like you probably have never experienced before. Thunderstorms, exposed to lightning strikes, flash floods, very high heat, very, very high humidity. You've got the wildlife, you've got the insects, you've got the disease. Any slight cut could become infectious within a matter of a few hours. Trying to move 3-ton vehicles through these conditions. Once they get going, they don't want to stop easily. If you're in the way, you'll get crushed.
So that's why we had this vehicle. We could have hired vehicles in country, but then everyone would have been different. And basically the whole basis of the program was to demonstrate just how good Shell's engine oil is. And it is. It really is the best stuff. Their fuel and their oil is absolutely top of the game. We don't entrust any other engine oil in this vehicle. So that was why we had it. Why have we got 2 then? Well, the reason being, should anything happen to that vehicle, and we're primarily talking an accident, it will be very easy for us to swap some number plates over, put it on a second vehicle, and then the show could continue. It's a long way to go. It's an expensive project for this to have failed or be involved in an accident. So the film crew mainly drove that other one and operated out of that one. The Stars, this was called the Star Car, was driven by the guys that featured in the film. So this will be the one that you see, this actual vehicle. Looking at the number plate, it's a 2011 model, you're correct, or that's when it was imported into the UK. We would have been, what, Euro 4 emissions? This doesn't even comply with Euro 1. It has no electronics, no EGR, no DPF, no ECUs, no computers, no nothing. So it's a proper 1980s, maybe 1970s technology engine, a proper smoky old diesel. So how on earth could we register this as a new vehicle? The reason being, it's left-hand drive, and it's all got to do with something to do with the American military. They come over here for a 3-year posting, be it primarily the Air Force. In Germany, it'd be primarily the Army, but in the UK, it's primarily the Air Force. And they bring their cars with them, which also don't comply with any emission laws. Certainly their classic cars don't. And after 1 year, they have to take them off American plates and be registered as British vehicles for the remaining 2 years of their service. And somehow there is a loophole in the law that says left-hand drive, because of the American military cars will be left-hand drive. They don't have to comply with the emission laws. If it was a right-hand drive vehicle of this exact same type, we would not be allowed to bring it into the UK and put it on British number plates. Believe it or not, this is even ULEZ compliant as well, even something as big and as gas guzzling as this. So it's very simple. It doesn't have central locking. You have to manually lock and unlock everything. It has wind-up windows here. Yeah, no electronics there. A fog light had to be fitted in order to comply with UK law. The Japanese don't have to have fog lights on their vehicles. Not really much going on. There wasn't even a radio in it. All very basic. It has aircon, but we tend not to use it purely because it just sups fuel and it's not exactly fuel efficient at the best of times anyway. And then we use this little sort of 4-way gang to charge phones, iPads, which we do our navigation off, and then one of these will be attached to an ICOM communications radio. So I've taken it all off the vehicle since we went through customs and immigration getting back into the UK. But it will be mounted over here on a sucker. You can see where those rings are maybe. So that's where the sucker mounts. And then it's a UHF, VHF radio. Gets suckered to the windscreen, powered via the 12 volt. And then an aerial goes out through the door and it's magnetically mounted onto the roof. That bit of kit there, it used to be called Yellow Brick. It's now been rebranded as YB Tracker. That is a satellite tracking device that runs off the Iridium system. So the Iridium are low Earth orbiting satellites. I think there's something in the region of 50 miles above the Earth, whereas a geostationary one is probably several thousand miles, and it just sits exactly the same point in space and rotates with the Earth. The low Earth orbiting ones are the ones you can see moving across the night sky. 66 of these spinning around, and it's the only system that goes over the poles. There is one called Global Star, but they don't have enough satellites up and they don't go over the poles. So this is a truly global satellite tracking system. A lot of it's used by yachting teams when they have races across the Atlantic. Clearly, if you get into trouble, you want people to know exactly where you are within minutes. This can send a position onto a Google map or Google Earth map, anywhere ranging between every 5 minutes to every day. Depending on what we're doing, we set it either every 15 minutes or every hour. We had it every 15 minutes on the last trip. There's also the ability to hit under here. I probably can't flick it without breaking it. A little switch under here, and that hits a panic button, and that immediately sends an exact transmission of your exact location, even if you had set it to every hour, wherever you were, and that would alert someone back in the UK that you needed help. It's a 5-speed manual gearbox with a normal transfer box. So you've got 2-wheel drive high range. You simply knock it back. You don't need to dip the clutch. 4-wheel drive high range. So for those driving a Land Rover product, that would be the equivalent of locking the center differential. And then you have to stop, push down, and go into 4-wheel drive low range. So unfortunately, you can't be in low range and drive this vehicle on tarmac, which could be useful when towing stricken Ford Focuses. We have a fairly useless sort of a 3-seat arrangement here. It would be a bit uncomfortable sitting in this middle seat. They are all vinyl sort of wash down seats. What we might do is replace these with sort of more conventional cloth individual seats, and in this middle bit probably fit a narrow fridge, just to keep some drinks and maybe some milk chilled for having a nice cup of tea. You can see there it has sort of an internal roll cage, and that sort of extends externally to which the roof rack is mounted. We felt that obviously the value of these Hollywood celebrities, yes, we would be in a lot of trouble if they came to any harm, so hence fitting the roll cage. And then we fitted this net at the back to prevent, you can see boxes in the back there. If we were to suddenly come to a halt and have an accident, that should arrest any boxes flying forward. There is the doctor's bag, not quite how it would be positioned. It would be more upright, like a passenger in a seat, and the doctor would be sitting here on the driver's side. I would be primarily driving, so he's got a full medical kit right behind him should it be needed. And then in the back here we would just have our personal bags, and then I'll show you around the back. What else have we got? Sorry, while I'm here. So we always have a head torch handy. You never know when you might need one, and that is for a life hammer in case we need to get out the vehicle. And there's a fire extinguisher there. And what we have in the glove box, Dr. Paul's box of snacks was always in there, and a Gerber multi-tool. And really that's it. Now you're going to ask what these switches are, and I'll be honest, I can't remember. What they are to do with though is something to do with the Webasto heater, and I'll explain more of that when we look under the bonnet. In the driver's door pocket, we would have things like a high-vis jacket, little pack of cable ties always seem to be needed, rubber gloves from Screwfix. A lot of the fuel stations are really grubby, and so you pick up the pump handle and your hands are just caked in diesel and it stinks and you've got to wash your hands. So we found the rubber gloves are good. I did in previous projects use like winching gloves, but they just get soaked and then they stink as well. So get some rubber gloves, a water bottle, and sort of demist the inside. As you can see here, unfortunately, over the years, that has snapped, probably because bigger bottles than should be fitted have been pushed down into there. So that's a repair job I've got to do. And as you can see, real Sahara sand, the genuine stuff. So the poor car needs a good clean. Right, in order to unlock it, I've got to put my hand behind the back here, manually flick that, and come into the back here. So here we would have, we've got to say the doctor's bag is there. The green bags are tents, so we would have one each. Ground sheets, also inflatable mats from Multimat, brilliant bit of kit. We've used these on Choi Oyu, the world's 6th highest mountain, use them on Everest. We've got bottle of water there. That was my phone holder that I bought in Morocco. That lasted about 10 minutes and snapped. And you probably don't want to see that, and certainly you don't want to see if there's anything in it. That is a pee bottle, very useful, stuck at borders. You can just kind of discreetly lean up against the car, sort yourself out, but mainly at night in your tent. So that's that. Going around to the back, as you can see, we're using Cooper STT Pros. Now these are a fairly aggressive mud terrain tyre. In the past we've used what's called an ST Max, which is a sort of fairly aggressive all-terrain tyre, but Cooper have always sponsored us and didn't actually have any ST Maxes in stock, so we use these. So a bit more aggressive than you'd ever use in the desert, but 90% of the Sahara is rock. The important thing is very strong sidewalls, and that's what a mud terrain and an all-terrain will give you over a conventional tyre. So what do we got in the back then, apart from a lot of Saharan sand? Big camping gas bottle here. We did do a bit of camping, but actually we used the jet boil in the end. As you can see, there's no racking system at all. It's just simply plastic boxes by a company called UTZ Group, or UTZ Group. The reason we have that is, should there be a vehicle fire, I can grab everything in this vehicle and get it out. Absolutely everything. Nothing is built in. And for those who've seen previous videos, your survival priorities are 3 minutes, 3 hours, 3 days, and 3 weeks. 3 minutes is oxygen. Get it wrong, have an accident, stuff the vehicle, stuff your head through the windscreen, catastrophic bleed, it's all over in 3 minutes. The next one is shelter, 3 hours in an extreme environment, and we're not talking Arctic extreme, UK extreme. You'll be in a pretty bad way if you haven't got the right clothing and the right shelter within 3 hours. So we can get tents out really quickly. As you'll see, no roof tents, just some ground tents. Get them out. The next priority is water. This is a lifesaver fuel jerry can. This will filter 20,000 litres of basically toilet water and give you pure drinking water out the back. It works by pressurising. There's a big filter here, a micron filter, squeezes the water through the filter elements and then brings it out the top, and I probably emptied it anyway. So that's why we have that. I can grab that and chuck it out the vehicle within absolutely seconds should we need to. So that's why we have no built-in water tanks. And finally, food. The average person can survive 3 weeks without food, 3 days without water. Again, grab it, chuck it out. No built-in drawer system, nothing. So there's my water. What have we got down the side here? We've got a shovel, tyre levers. Why do they need to be accessible? You know, if you've got a puncture, you could take all you like. They're used for breaking into doors, leaving doors open. If you come across an accident, that's your means of getting into a car. Bottle jack, that just happens to be there. More ground sheets. That's the pots and pans. Didn't really use it. Sort of that was our sort of brew kit. And what we got under here, sort of BDR, battle damage repair or bush mechanic kit. Food and stuff, more food. Another way of getting into a car, if you had to, is a pry bar. We've got recovery ropes and recovery kit. So that's kind of mainly it. And just while we're here, this is one of the aerials that would have been fitted to the Focus. And it's magnetically mounted, and that just sits on the roof with a coax cable that goes in there to the radio. You can see here we have cargo rail here for securing stuff down. To be quite honest, we tend not to. We drive smoothly, we're not hooning around, so this stuff doesn't really move. And then up here, Victron inverter. So this converts 12 volts battery power from the vehicle into 240 volts mains power, so we can charge up stuff that you wouldn't normally be able to charge through a USB connector or a cigarette lighter socket. Recently, although we didn't have it on the Driven to Extremes trip because that is the recovery hook, we've also mounted this. The reason being is we carry a solid A-frame, so should a vehicle break down, we can do a solid tow on tarmac for extended periods, whereas doing it with a rope, great for the desert. If you've got to then tow someone across the mountains to the nearest village to get some major work done, that would just be hard work, particularly if it's a brake issue that's causing them problems. Climbing up, what have we got up here? So we have Max Tracks. A lot of you who are sort of involved in overlanding and off-road driving will have come across these. Made in Australia, brilliant bit of kit. The only problem is though, these can melt, believe it or not, quite easily, and then all of a sudden you've got no grip here because a bit of wheel spin will actually, and you can actually see there, they're starting to. We've got one of them, you know, I've got some that have completely black smooth, melted off. So what I'll have to do is drill those out and put little metal nuts and bolts on. 60 litres of fuel. Although this has two fuel tanks, it has a 90 litre tank, and then it has I think it's a 35 or 40 litre tank underneath. We always carry fuel. If you puncture the tank, you can repair it, but what are you going to put in it if it's all drained out? So that's why we'll always carry fuel, and we'll be carrying fuel for the Focuses. That was a box just for some spare springs, never needed it. And up front, that was the sump guard that never actually arrived in the desert. As you can see, there is a snorkel. So this was actually made by Scorpion 4x4 or Scorpion Off-Road or whatever they were called in Malaysia. It was handmade. It's not a safari snorkel. We couldn't get hold of one. So this was made. It's I think it's steel or maybe aluminium, but it served us well. What we will do though is we'll take that off, and I'm going to put a cyclone filter on the top here that spins the air to try and remove most of the dust before it goes into the engine. So this is it. This is your 4.2 straight 6 normally aspirated. We run Odyssey batteries. We've got one here, one in the boot, which is a leisure battery to power auxiliary equipment like phones, laptops, camera charging, and all the rest of the equipment like that. We have used Optima batteries before. They're the ones that look like they've got sort of 6 or 8 big cells. Brilliant, as long as you're using them continuously. Leave the vehicle for a month and don't drive it. Absolutely flat, stone dead. So we have been using Odyssey batteries ever since, and these are absolutely fantastic. So yeah, Odyssey batteries are what you want to do. This is a buzzer system. So basically, what we had in Siberia, we're operating at -60. So although we asked information from the locals, and all the rest of it, and we used a company called Footloose 4x4 based in Peterborough, we were advised to fit a Webasto heater. That's what this thing is. It's a big diesel heater. It runs off the main diesel fuel tank, and it basically keeps the water warm in the block and on the head. Yeah, so that is keeping the water warm. I don't think we actually used it in Siberia because it's so cold that the oil would not be circulating, and therefore the oil in the sump would probably go pretty solid, even though the water jacket itself was warm. So I don't believe we actually used it. What we did was, once we set off from Yakutsk, that engine just ran continuously for 10 days, never switched off. And so that's what happens out there. The locals have to have 2 keys. They will have 1 key to lock the door when they go to work, and 1 key will stay in the ignition and keep the engine running the whole time. The other thing we had to do in Siberia is we had to fit double glazing. So you basically take 10mm thick draft excluder and put an identical windscreen over the top and stick it down with what can only be described as extra wide electrical insulation tape. And then we also fitted it on the side, but because there's a slight curve to the glass here, it was a flat piece of glass made, and then he simply scores it, cracks it, so there's one straight piece, and then some sort of clear, basically sellotape. While we're talking on that subject, at the back here, I don't know if you can see, if I crawl right underneath, these are Coney heavy track raid shocks. I don't know what springs we use, they're probably standard, but these shocks, I've got a feeling, are the same ones as we've used 40, whatever this vehicle's got now, 40,000 kilometers on it. The same ones as were fitted in Siberia, and they're still good. So we've got Coney, and these were wrapped with basically sticky, like sleeping mat material, the sort of closed cell foam sleeping mat material, that kind of stuff, wrapped around here to try and keep the heat in the shock absorbers. There's one of the fuel tanks, and then the other fuel tank is, if I just take it round here, I've got a feeling it's under this side. Yeah, there's the other fuel tank under there, and then in the in here you've got two fillers, sub tank and main tank. So let's go back to the engine then. We've talked about the snorkel, the Webasto that was fitted, never used. I want to take that out actually. Use this space to take the second battery from the boot and stick it up here. It's a bit of a pain there, it kind of gets in the way. But yes, very, very basic. A regular sort of viscous fan. Different belts for different things. It's not one big serpentine belt. So if you had a failure in your air conditioning belt, although I was pointing to this, I don't know if that is the air conditioning, probably not. I think that's power steering. If you had a failing with the air conditioning belt, it won't kill the other auxiliary items that you need. You've got 2 oil filters down there, whopping great air filter. But yeah, lots of electronics that really need to now be taken off because, this isn't going to go back to Siberia. This is a buzzer. So basically, if the engine was to stop in Siberia, a buzzer would go off to alert us, because we were always sort of sleeping very close to the vehicle, alert us that we had to get it started or get heat underneath it, get a fire underneath it or something to keep the engine warm. So that's what that is there for. That's not a horn. The horn is down the front somewhere. A big bull bar, well, that was fitted for Malaysia. It wasn't fitted for Siberia or the desert. As you'll probably realise, there aren't many trees in the desert, nothing to winch off, just a second vehicle will give you a tow. We have this sort of, whatever that is, 10mm, maybe less, chicken wire behind here. Very useful to stop small stones flicking through and taking out the radiator. And then I think this is actually a worn winch, even though it's got Prestige winches on it there, with a synthetic rope. So yeah, we do use it occasionally, but it's normally for tipping vehicles over onto their sides like that, if we need to do any work on the underside of them. As you can see on the underside, all pretty standard, no guards as such. It's a pretty solid lump of kit, this. So no need to really worry too much about hitting things. They can take quite a thump. The lights, light force, don't actually work at the moment, so I've got to get them sorted. You can see these need to be changed. They're all getting a bit scabby. Light deflectors for driving on the continent, and you can see the original colour of the vehicle was white, sort of NATO white, or UN aid agency white, as it were. But this is the shell orange. And there you can see the external roll cage going into a built-in roof rack. These here are for high lift jacks, one here, one the other side. We've dragged high lift jacks all around the world, never ever used them. Almost a pointless bit of kit to carry, so I wouldn't even entertain carrying one. We didn't on the last trip. They're just heavy lumps of whatever. Yes, you could use it possibly as a winch, but to be quite honest, several vehicles in a convoy, kinetic rope, you'll pull anything out. And if you don't, just get the max tracks out, grab a shovel, and dig your way out. So there we go. I think that is about it, but I thought I would just give you a walk round, let you see. These are the workhorses. Like I say, we have two of them. And that's the logo from the project in 2018, when we started helping veterans with PTSD by taking them on challenging vehicle adventures to aid their recovery. So there we have it. Nissan Patrol 4.2, the workhorse of the Driven to Extremes expeditions. Hopefully that was of interest. If you've got any questions about the vehicle, put them in the comments below, and I can either answer in writing, or I can pop out and do another video and show you a bit more about this and the sister vehicle that have been used on some pretty exciting adventures around the world. So from -60 Siberia, +50 of the Taklamakan Desert, many expeditions across the Sahara Desert, down to the Malaysian Jungle. And the one thing I will note, which might be of interest, is when we did the Siberia project, Tom Hardy was due to be filming Mad Max. My understanding is that a big downpour happened in Australia, where it was going to be filmed, and this sort of Mad Max, wilderness of, death and remoteness and, lack of everything, suddenly went bright green and lush, and the producers went, well, that doesn't look very Mad Max-like. So they wanted to rush off and do it in Namibia, and before there was a downpour there, which was forecast, we had to do the film. So I had 3 weeks originally to get these vehicles on a train to Far Eastern Siberia. So that never happened, because everything was brought forward 3 weeks before Tom had to go and film Mad Max. So I chartered a Boeing 757. I think that cost us about £140,000, and we flew these two to Far Eastern Siberia. We were there about a week before the film crew and the Hollywood celebrity Tom Hardy and Mika Salo came out. And after about 10 days filming, they went back home. In order to get to Western China, myself and my mechanic Paul, we drove them all the way from Far Eastern Siberia down to Lake Baikal, across Mongolia into Eastern China, all the way across the top of China to the Taklamakan Desert. Henry Cavill and Neil Hodgson came out, 10 days of filming, and then we drove round the edge of the Tibetan Plateau to Chengdu, through Laos, Thailand and Malaysia. So They did about 5 months worth of driving in 2012 and then many trips to the Sahara Desert since then. So brilliant vehicles, they've never let us down, but it's their simplicity that keeps them going. So yeah, hopefully that was of interest. Comments, questions below, and I'll do my best to answer them. Cheers for now.